obviously, we got the FBI motives and FBI narratives that were undermined last night by Ken Klippenstein's fantastic reporting on the background of the shooter, the anti-ICE shooter, right? First and foremost, remember when Russia tried to stage a photo of a Ukrainian assassin's hideout and instead of SIM cards, they posted copies of The Sims? Yeah, this is just like, this is so bad that it made the libs go, I don't really believe this. Like, it even made the libs go, seems weird, right? Like, and I don't know if it's because they're just incompetent. Like, what is this? Like, what? I don't know. It just seems so crazy. It seems like, if they said ICE is not poggers, that would make more sense, dude, than anti-ICE on the bullet, you know? The backside says a leftist did this, Lamau. Wait. FBI Dallas and FBI headquarters have been working 24/7 to seize devices, exploit data, and process writings obtained on location in the subject's person residence bedroom. This FBI is committed to providing timely updates as promised. The perp downloaded a document titled Dallas County Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Management containing a list of DHS facilities. He conducted multiple searches of ballistics and the Charlie Kirk shot video between 9:23 and 9:24. Between 8:19 and 8:24, he searched apps that tracked the presence of ICE agents. One of the handwritten notes recovered read, "Hopefully this will give ICE agents real terror to think. Is there a sniper with AP rounds on that roof?" Further accumulated evidence to this points to indicated high degree of pre-attack planning. The FBI will provide further updates when able. So yeah, they're trying to tie this to like the ICE tracker apps, you know, like all of the grassroots mobilization against like ICE presence. Like they're gonna make that illegal too, I think. And I suspect they'll also simultaneously be like, yeah, not only do we have to make sure that these like grassroots ICE tracker apps are totally illegal because this fucking person used it clearly, that all leftist organizing is illegal as well. And every neo-lib tweeter below doesn't buy it. Yeah, no, I do like that the liberals, even liberals who normally would be totally reliant on government, like official organs of the government saying anything really, have looked at this and been like, nah, this doesn't make a lot of sense. But there's obviously a little bit more information that is now readily available to us. Shouts out to Ken Leakenstein, as always, for doing fantastic reporting. He went and he got anonymously interviewed some of the friends, like the lifelong friends, really, of the shooter. And he revealed that the ways in which the FBI has concocted this like left-wing anti-fascist terrorism narrative is not great. Joseph K. Young says, ascribing motive to politically violent people is hard when they don't leave a manifesto. We should all pause and do some research and or read things like this, where someone tries to figure out the motive by actually talking to people. Exclusive, the ICE shooter's politics. Joshua John's friends speak. The deadly sniper attack on a Dallas ICE facility this morning seems straightforward, with anti-ICE engraved on the unspent shell casing recovered from the scene, per the FBI. But after interviewing several of the alleged shooter's former friends, the picture isn't so clear. Within minutes of the shooting, FBI Director Kash Patel posted on X, while the investigation is ongoing, an initial review of the evidence shows an ideological motive behind this attack. See photo below. Now, what's crazy about it is, like, I need you guys to understand something. The FBI should not be doing this for two different reasons. One, in this circumstance, the investigation is irrelevant, really, because like the shooter died, right? He killed himself. But in situations where there's an ongoing court case, you're not supposed to taint the evidence by immediately coming out in public and creating a narrative framing around the situation. That's not something you can do. That's not something you should be doing in general, okay? But another societal, the other societal impact of the FBI doing this like very clearly biased immediate evidence farming is making people less reliant on the FBI as a reasonable actor, okay? This is genuinely a problem. If you believe that we have to be a nation of rules and laws you have to have like at least some commitment to these institutions that are going to be infallible to a certain degree. They're going to abide by an incredibly high standard when they're doing these sorts of investigations. Like, you can't be doing shit like this. I hate to sound like a liberal, but this is a ridiculous thing to do. You can't be running around and being like, this is a bad guy, and I found out exactly what their biases are, and I'll have you know, might come as a surprise, but the shooter was exactly the opposite of my worldview and was very clearly acting out in a way that I want to, you know, in all of the groups that I want to silence and suppress. You can't do that. You can't do that, man. You can't do that. Like, can you imagine after like a million different investigations that have been conducted to like right-wing political violence, like Joe Biden coming out and being like, guys, listen, I don't normally do this. I'm not even going to look at the manifesto. I'm just going to come out and be like, that's a right-wing guy. That's a right-wing guy. Bet you he's a Ben Shapiro fan. We got to start taking care of these Ben Shapiro style content creators. Like, that would be insane. And then having the FBI reveal this information immediately without any sort of serious investigation being conducted into the matter. So it's even worse when there is, it's even worse in the Tyler Robinson case because the shooter is not dead. So there is not only an investigation that will be conducted, but also a court case that will happen in the aftermath of this, right? You can't do this with Luigi Mangione in the way that the law enforcement agencies and people in positions of power have done. This actually taints the jury pool. This is like, you're biasing, you're creating an environment, a narrative bias before due process takes place. It's grounds for a mistrial. Like, what the fuck are we doing? This is so ridiculous. Obviously, it's not going to happen, right? Given the severity of the crime, it's never going to happen. But like, under normal circumstances, that is unironically what would take place. Okay? Being in this administration just feels like a race to the bottom. Everyone is trying to get out their Twitter posts as fast as possible for clout. Literally an administration of influence. I know. You can't be doing that. You can't be doing that, little baby. If you want the FBI to be like a serious institution that people still respect, you can't be doing that. Get Kash Patel fucking out of there, man. What the hell? President Trump responded to the shooting by blaming the radical left, vowing to sign another executive order to dismantle what he called domestic terrorism networks. This comes at the heels of another executive order he signed this week, designating Antifa a domestic terrorist organization, as I previously reported. I have been briefed on the deadly shooting. We already read this yesterday, but he said, I've been briefed on the deadly shooting. It's Antifa. You can't compare ICE agents to Nazis. That's completely unacceptable. All this stuff, right? Vice President J.D. Vance, meanwhile, says, we know that this person was politically motivated, pointing both to the inscriptions and some evidence we have that's not yet public. On the off chance the shooting wasn't what it looked like, I reached out to people who knew the gunman, 29-year-old Joshua John. 3 who knew him since at least middle school and agreed to speak to me on the condition that I not name them, corroborating their friendship with photos and other records. Their accounts paint the picture of someone with a vaguely libertarian bent who despised both major parties and politicians generally, including Trump, but who didn't engage with politics beyond that. He preferred edgy humor, video games, and the message board 4chan, all of which he became increasingly steeped in as he withdrew from social life as well as their own friendships several years ago, they said. None of his former friends believed the anti-ICE inscription could possibly be sincere, feeling such a serious political statement was anathema to who John was. His humor was deeply ironic, often offensive, and aggressive to the point of alienation. Okay? So, classic leftist site 4chan. Before you say classic leftist site 4chan, there are leftists who are on 4chan as well. Okay? That's true. There's it's not just right-wingers, even though it's most famous for right-wingers, and the likelihood that you're a right-winger, if you're on poll, especially you're most likely a right-winger, but that doesn't mean that there aren't leftists on 4chan, okay? Just remember that. Weren't you a 4chaner? No, I was not. What the fuck? He was most certainly an edgelord, an irony guy, one friend said. Edgelord is online speak for someone who doesn't who likes to espouse edgy nihilistic views. Asked about the inscription on the bullet, the friend said, Josh was an edgelord who wanted someone to get blamed. I think he tried his best to write something goofy to rile people up. Another friend showed me a Facebook post describing how John had flooded his friend's comment section with rape jokes. Playful shock humor, the friend said. Fucking insane. Hey, man, that's just playful shock humor.
The media has been amplifying these apps even as we warned them it would only lead to more attacks on law enforcement. We truly wish we didn't have to say,
ICE
I
app.
told you so.
He blamed the
But here we
anti-ICE
are.
statements. They
ICE
want to
continues
stamp
prioritize
out
the
discontent.
safety
This
and
is not about
security
like
of our personnel, detained aliens.
they are going to find a
We will do
just
everything
cause
possible to
in their
increase
minds, or
security
they're trying to develop a
to
just
counter
cause in their
the
minds
increased
to
rate of these
to
lethal
do
attacks.
free speech restrictions, the likes you've never seen or even can comprehend.
Foment violence and vilify our law enforcement officers to cease the dangerous rhetoric. We also call on law-abiding Americans everywhere to report any suspicious activity. The individual that was out there yesterday shooting at our agents and our officers was trying to take the lives of law enforcement people doing their job. Instead, he killed a detainee and shot 2 others. That is something that's unacceptable. The rhetoric that's out there on social media, the rhetoric that is being said by some community leaders in other states needs to stop. There's been an increase in violence against ICE agents, not only in Texas and Dallas, but across the country in violent protests. Again, I ask everybody, just stop. Thank you.
So we're going to open it up to questions now. So if you have a question, we'll direct it to the appropriate person. You're first up.
Sean Murphy with the Associated Press. Can you tell an estimate of how many shots were fired and how he was able to get those off so quickly with the bolt action?
Yeah, so how I'll answer that at this point, again, I'll just remind you, this is an ongoing investigation. The ICE facility, the ICE office, really, it is a business office. This is where business is done on a daily basis by our partners at ICE. That is still an active crime scene. We still have personnel out there. As I mentioned earlier in my remarks, we brought in resources from San Antonio, Oklahoma City, obviously our own FBI resources here in Dallas, as well as folks from our lab, because we are going to do a thorough and exhaustive investigation and make sure that we have a full accounting of all the evidence that's at that scene. Again, those efforts are ongoing at this time. I'm going to go here real quick.
Thank you. Can you talk to us more about the detainees in the van? Were they transported to Alvarado, Texas, and what happened to them?
So you're referring to detainees that were not injured?
Correct.
Yeah.
And maybe you could give us an update on the ones that are injured, identities, nationalities.
So I won't be providing any updates at this time on the identities of the detainees that were injured. ICE has a process from notifications to consulate and to next of kin. That process is ongoing, and so we'll defer to our ICE counterparts at some point to determine when it's the right time to release that information. The other detainees remain safe. They are victims as well of this violent crime, and they are people that we are actively interviewing as part of our investigation. Right here to the front.
Matt Kyle, Dallas Morning News. Ms. Larson had referenced anti-government, anti-federal government statements that Mr. Yan had made. Is there any more information y'all can release about what exactly was in those writings?
The clearest motivation for this attack are his own words. In his handwritten notes, he says...
Bro, I'm sorry. There's something so stupid about being like, they're using the ICE app to target ICE agents, and then the dude that shot detainees shot them outside of an ICE facility. Do you think he needed the ICE app to know where the ICE agents were? He was sniping at a fucking ICE detention facility. What are we talking about, man?
We know that he obtained the firearm in August. We also know that he was looking at a number of DHS facilities, and he
it's
had
like
downloaded
demanding
that
we ban
information.
Google
He was
Maps
looking at
because
the apps,
Google
as my
Maps
counterpart
shows
mentioned,
where
to see
the
what
ICE
ICE
detention
agencies. So
facility is.
This was not
What the
something that
fuck?
just occurred yesterday. It came to a conclusion yesterday, but this is something months in the making.
Priscilla Thompson with NBC Network News. From what we have heard, this person was not particularly political. Was there anything that you all have found in terms of an inciting incident that led him to commit this attack?
Unfortunately, the challenge with these mass casualty incidents is people can be motivated to violence by any number of grievances. In this case, the clear syndication of motives.
I
He
saw
wanted
the
to
footage.
cause terror. He wanted
You
to.
can see
he
with their
wanted to
own
harm
two
ICE
eyes. It's like it
personnel.
says Department of Homeland Security.
The deceased shooter, did he have a relation with somebody who had been detained by ICE or mistreated by ICE for him to act this way?
Again, the clearest motivations at this point are the harm he wanted to cause to ICE. We're not aware of any specific relationships he had with anybody in detention. But again, our investigation's ongoing. We're going to unturn every stone here. And so that continues. Sir.
Omar Villafranca with CBS News. Secretary Noem has asked for increased security at ICE facilities across the country. Can you say what is going to be done to harden these facilities to protect agents and detainees?
So I cannot say what will be done by.
Oh my
by
God, incredible! They're gonna be like, we have to operate as black sites. Make it make it even crazier. Make this system even more unjustifiable and mysterious. You know, oh, sorry. In the interest of defending our big, beautiful soldiers here, we have to also completely eradicate due process. You know, they can just come into your house. They don't have to ever declare that they're members of law enforcement, by the way. We can't do oversight because that's also harmful to them engaging in this sort of conduct. And also, they can just operate outside of black sites now. Fantastic.
I don't want to give away any operational security as to how
I'm
we're going to
telling
be
you
doing
right
that.
now, man.
There are-
I'm telling you
there-
right
there are
now.
plans
This is
to
where we're heading
our
down. It's
specifics.
not. This is real. It's happening in real time in front of our eyes. They are trying to develop a just cause to be able to do all of this stuff.
Mr. Yan was not an immigrant. He was a United States citizen. He was here legally. I won't be going into the details on anybody other than Mr. Yan at this time.
Why is the FBI protecting ICE here? What do you mean? They're all a part of the same federal apparatus of law enforcement. What? Of course they're going to protect ICE. What are you talking about?
So again,
Especially
the
now more
totality
than
of our
ever, the
investigation includes
federal
interviews,
mechanisms of law enforcement are
canvassing
completely
areas,
at the
what
direction
surveillance
of the
video.
president's.
We're certainly looking at
Completely at the direction of the presidency. They don't care about anything. Like there's never been more of an overt attempt to bias investigations, to go along with the needs and the demands of the administration. Like it's just.
What will happen in the coming days with that facility? Are there detainees being held there?
It's
Have they all
all
been taken
straight
away?
up
Is it operational?
at the mercy.
It is going to remain
the
an active
whims
crime
of a
scene for some
madman.
time.
As I had said, the ICE officers that are out there right now, you've seen them in multiple times on the news. They're out there doing their job with courage and honor. Yes, there is a heightened sense.
Again, we will never talk about what their job entails. Their job is to literally go out in the streets, wear masks, and violently apprehend and kidnap random fucking Americans or people working on U.S. soil. Okay? Many of which they apprehend at the point of their court appointment. Like these are people who are playing the legal game that has been designed to fuck them over. They're going to their job sites and they are apprehending them. They have guns, they have masks on, they come out of unmarked vehicles. It is totally ridiculous that these guys will just be like, oh, they're just doing their jobs. They're just doing their jobs. Yeah, a slave catcher was doing his job, you know? The Gestapo was doing their job. Some jobs are unjustifiable. I'm not even in the business of saying that there is no reason for federal law enforcement to exist. Obviously, I'm not, I understand the necessity for an organized unit that is supposed to abide by certain principles. Okay, I get it. Having said that, when we're talking about ICE, simply saying it's just a job is ridiculous. Like the job is quite literally to mass apprehend innocent people, declare them criminals, and punish them severely for the crime that is, under different circumstances, considered a civil offense, like a moving violation. You know what I mean? Like, imagine we're doing this for jaywalkers. There's a real issue with jaywalkers in this country. We got to fucking apprehend them. We got to apprehend the jaywalkers. You have been found jaywalking. It's crazy. Yeah, it's a job just like being an IDF soldier is just a job, right? Not all jobs are created equal, I think. Anyway, getting back to Ken Klippenstein, who is profiling the shooter to try to arrive at like some kind of motive. His friends say he was most certainly, this is Jonathan Yans. His friends that have known him since middle school say he was most certainly an edgelord, an irony guy, one friend said. Edgelord is online speak for someone who likes to espouse edgy, nihilistic views. Asked about the inscription on the bullet, the friend said Josh was an edgelord who wanted someone to get blamed. I think he tried his best to write something goofy to rile people up. Another friend showed me a Facebook post describing how John had flooded his friend's comment section with rape jokes. Playful shock humor, the friend said. John's profile on the gaming platform Steam showed the vast amounts of time he spent playing video games, particularly shooters, more than 6,000 hours on Rust, which, oof, red flag, okay? That's, no disrespect to Rust, but bit of a red flag there, 3,000 on Team Fortress 2, 1,000 on Left 4 Dead 2. He even found time to play 3.5 hours in the past 2 weeks, the account shows. Among the dozen or so usernames he used, one was reading #impeachment. When I asked if this wasn't a clear reference to anti-Trump politics, his friends recoiled at the idea that he would express opposition to Trump so sincerely and straightforwardly. Instead, they saw it as a part of his broader ironic persona, poking fun at the anti-Trump resistance types. Hanky Bob, clan tag. Users also played as Sam I Am. That said, one friend recalled that when Trump first came to power, Jan was not a fan, though he had contempt for mainstream politicians in general. His friends say he had more of a libertarian bent, with one recalling an interest in the libertarian figure Ron Paul. You know what's really funny about the ideological motives that people try to ascribe to, instances of political violence, like people who have engaged in acts of political violence, is that we have such a silly view of the average American, which I always point to when talking about the median voter. Identifying the politics of a median voter is a virtually fucking possible. Okay? It's just so silly because most people do not subscribe to straight ticket blue Dem or straight ticket right-wing Republican voting. Okay? There is more consolidation ideologically within the right as opposed to the liberal side of things, for sure. But having said that, even then, it is virtually impossible to understand what the average American, especially the average American that doesn't vote, even though he is eligible to vote, is genuinely impossible. Okay? It is incoherent. There are many people in here that if someone from the outside was looking at your social media profiles, they would be like, what the fuck does this guy believe? I don't understand it. I can't associate it with any sort of like mainline established political ideology. Okay? Still, the friend who recounted Jan's dislike of Trump insisted that there was at least a kernel of seriousness to the username. If it was ironic, it's half irony, where you're half kidding, half serious, just in case, he said. He was never really into politics, especially not politicians, said another friend who had known Jan since age 8. He was into politics only in the 4chan sense. Contrarian, provocative, boundary-pushing for laughs, not conviction. 4chan, the anonymous message board where provocation and irony are the coin of the realm, was apparently one of Jan's favorite haunts. His abrasive humor is where his friends describe his opinions on him diverged the most, with some describing it as amusing, but others as grating, especially as his online persona bled into real life. I mostly stopped talking to him when he took his 4chan irony stuff into daily interactions, one friend told me. He was becoming unbearable. Once he dropped out of college, he had no obligation to be social, and none of us reached out due to his edgelord behavior. Oh my Lord. This is, what's really funny? A lot of mainstream voices, especially on the right, constantly are now trying to point the finger of blame at like edgy nihilism and like political violence in my direction. And so much of what I try to do is to snap people out of this. Like literally, if people come in here and watch me for half a day, they will realize that a big chunk of what I am combating is exactly this. The social isolation that comes from finding yourself steeped within like incel, extremely online, irony poisoned, nihilistic circles that basically push your real life social interactions into the background as your online persona under the guise of anonymity becomes more and more your real world persona as well. And it causes people around you to go, ew, gross, get the fuck away from me. This is a big part of the reason why I always say touch grass. This is a big part of the reason why I always say be fucking normal. Okay? I would have to say you're doing a terrible job. Yeah, that's unironically the most untrue thing you could say, because there are a shit ton of people in here that have found not only a sense of community online, but also have found themselves doing more productive shit in the real world as a direct consequence of me urging them to stop and shake themselves out of this like weird, deep, dark, nihilistic fucking internet-based online circles that they find themselves in, whether it be going out and working out, whether it be urging them to join their local organizations and things of that nature. I wasn't able to find anyone who, with insight into Jan's more recent views, something that his friend said was unsurprising given his withdrawal from social life over the past few years. If you're having trouble finding people besides immediate family who knew him, that's part of the story, one friend said. Every mutual friend drifted away over that kind of edgelord behavior. A fledgling version of Jan's humor appears in the following YouTube video since removed from when he was a high schooler, a tongue-in-cheek parody of tech advice videos. Hello there, Facebook user. Are you tired of scrolling through your Facebook feed mindlessly? Well, there's a solution. You can unlike all your crappy pages. The following audio recording of Jan bombing at stand-up comedy was shared with me. It drew a comparison by one friend to the 2019 Joker film starring Joaquin Phoenix as an off-putting loner who also tried and failed at comedy. The film culminates in a scene in which the Joker gets his revenge on the entertainment world by gunning down the host of a popular late-night TV show. The audio from his attempted stand-up routine where he bombs now resonates uncannily with Joker, the friend said. Ironically, Jan's contempt for Trump and the major political parties has bestowed them with one of the most intensely partisan news cycles in recent memory. In this sense, the joke is on him, and all of us too. This still doesn't mean that the shooter has no profiles in or has no ideological profile that could be left slanted in any capacity, in any way, shape, or form, for the record. But this, paired up with the fact that do not play the audio was so bad, I'm not going to play the stand-up. I'm not going to do that. Come on. This paired up with the FBI investigation that has yielded no results, both in the case of Tyler Robinson and also in the case of this shooter as well, to any sort of like left adjacent groups, like left adjacent associations, makes it much harder for the government to develop a profile that would justify significant incursions on free speech. Do you want me to actually look at the fucking failed bomb stand-up routine that was audio? I guess it could like show us a little bit more of the background, but it's from 2019.
Was it the Dallas Comedy Club last time? Alright, so I'm going to start out with talking about something pretty serious. My buddy was talking to me the other day about reality TV, and he didn't like it too much. He said reality TV should never be played on TV. And I was all taken aback, like, whoa, dude, come on. I have some extremely bad insecurity issues about myself. They constantly eat me up alive. And reality TV is a remedy for that. That's a perfect remedy. And it applies to me.
I'll be honest, right off the jump, just hearing him speak, this is more consistent with like loner, antisocial personality disordered, like socially malignant shooters that we have seen in the past, as opposed to someone like Tyler Robinson, who very clearly still had friends at the point of the alleged assassination of Charlie Kirk that he allegedly participated in. Do you see what I mean? Like, this reminds me more of like a Thomas Crook style individual where their politics are indecipherable and it just like kind of doesn't make sense. Is this at the Comedy Mothership? I don't know. As far as like Luigi Mangione or Tyler Robinson goes, their background does not correspond to like the average profile. The average profile of like a school shooter or a mass shooter, a person engaging in like a horrific act of violence. This seems to be more evidence that the political shooting is supplanting the school shooting as a path to notoriety for suicidal and nihilistic, socially maladjusted individuals. Yes, this is my argument as well. This is what I am seeing as well, especially because these things have a tendency to create copycats. In the past, and I said this yesterday, in the past, when people wanted to make a name for themselves, when someone was like a socially maladjusted, isolated, alienated, sometimes mentally ill person, right? And they had suicidal ideation. Instead of doing suicide by cop, they would go and engage in a mass shooting in an area, in an environment that they've designed for themselves that have tremendous control over their lives. If you're young, it's the school, right? The school is restrictive. If you are older, it's your workplace, right? It's your resentment. It's the resentment that you experience that you associate with a hierarchy that holds you back, right? But I think a lot of these people have now realized that given how much school shootings have become commonplace, it doesn't actually end up getting you the broad recognition and the constant back and forth. Like, what's the reason why he did this? What's the reason why he actually? Let's try to identify the motives. Let's like dig into the background of the shooter, because like the evidence itself is built in. I mean, look at the Annunciation Church shooter, right? Right-wing profile, insane, highlighted a bunch of fucking white nationalist mass shooters. That was a story that was around for like 2.5 days. And then people made their partisan motives, people made their partisan framework very clear in that process. And then they just fucking moved on. So you don't get the same level of elevated profile from stuff like that. So then you see, I think, people engaging in acts of political violence potentially, because they think this will allow people to, this will give them more notoriety. And if I were to like try and dive into the mindset of a person like this, if I were to dive into the mindset of a person like this, I suspect that this is for them a way to chase fame, a way to have a semblance of control over their lives when they feel like they've completely lost all power. They have no way of developing autonomy. They feel alienated. They feel isolated. They don't have any friends. They don't have any purpose in life. And they feel like this is a way to become powerful in their own minds. This like sick, twisted way to try and get notoriety and therefore some kind of power even after they die. Now, I don't think that for Luigi that was the case, right? I don't know, but it didn't feel like that was the case for Luigi Mangione. But it doesn't matter, because like the endless back and forth in the aftermath, the endless media cycle, looking at the motives and looking at the causes of why this kind of violence was outright celebrated, right? Allegedly with Luigi Mangione, that in and of itself, I think, created a media environment that made it so that other people would look at that and be like, I want that. Like, I want that for myself. I want this kind of fanfare, or I want this kind of endlessly diving into the background of someone like me, little old me, becoming high profile, which of course is genuinely worrisome for two different reasons. One, because it's just yet another, like, the more high profile shootings take place, and the more this kind of violence we are desensitized to, the more people will try to increase the intensity in the aftermath of that, especially if people in positions of power feel fearful. They will greatly clamp on those who they believe are responsible for this kind of radicalization. And it'll never be the systems themselves that are radicalizing people. It'll never be like the cost of paywalling healthcare for many Americans that universalizes that experience for them. It'll always be people like myself. You know, it'll always be a media figure that played a role in this. And for the Republicans, it's very clear. It's not just people like myself either. It's also the Democrats as a whole. It's anyone that considers what Donald Trump is doing to be Nazi behavior, fascist behavior. Do you see what I mean? And they will do everything in their power to stamp out discontent. People have been chasing fame or infamy of the Columbine boys for years. Everyone still remembers their names. People won't remember Solomon Henderson in 20 years. Yeah, the irony, of course, is that the increasing frequency of these kinds of violence, these kinds of violent incidents, also leads to an overall desensitization to these kinds of violent incidents. And therefore, it causes people that are chasing infamy by engaging in this incredibly violent act to not even get that infamy anyway.